little bit about you guys, Jonathan, if you would.
Oh, so got married in 2017 and got pregnant about 4 hours after that. We went full Catholic. So we said that we're a challenge member since 2017. Amy was actually like 7 or 8 months pregnant when we went to David's 2-day seminar. So she was, well, I can't say she was big. She was very pregnant at that time, and so she was kind of in and out the whole time and like trying to catch what she could and all that. When we went to the 2-day, and at the end of the 2 days, when she said, "All right, we're signing up for challenge because you're not looking for properties on your own, you're too busy as it is, and we're fixing to have a kid." So I didn't want to do it. She was the one that actually brought it up, and we did. And kind of like what Katie just said, I mean, we made that money back plus an extra $40,000 or something on our first deal. So it worked out well for us. I'm in sales. Amy's a recruiter, and we have 2 kiddos now.
Now let's go ahead and go to the next slide about why you joined Lifestyles, because you've got so much more to your story that we're going to get into a little bit, that we're going to expand on from what you just told us. But what kind of got you interested in us?
So
why did you decide to take the leap?
For me, it's always one of those things that my parents were better off than their parents. Their parents were better, it keeps going. So it's kind of the only mindset you have, I guess, when you have a family of, I want to make sure that my kids are better off. They have more opportunities than I ever had and all this other stuff. So kind of like what Katie was saying, like she didn't tell her parents and everything else. I told my old man, and he's told me over and over and over again, I hope you fail on a house. I hope you really screw up on one, because it can't be this good. Like you're only doing things that's only been successful. Like I want to bring you back down to earth, because I don't like, he still doesn't trust it after everything we've done. And so there are some people you're just not going to convince. And I tell them all the time, I said, look, the fact that y'all worked till you were 65 and you worked all these hours allowed me to take risks that you would never even dream about taking. And so that was the big thing for me, was it would be kind of, you would dishonor your parents if you didn't try to improve on what they did before you. So I didn't want to work till I was 65. I've never wanted to work till I was 65. I wanted to work 60, 70-hour weeks until I was in my 40s and then be done. And I figured out how much money it was going to cost for me to retire. And then I realized how much stuff I would have to sell and for how long and for how stressed out. And I'm like, man, that's just not going to happen. So I need to figure out something else. So then I started researching, what are the richest people in our country doing, and then what are the most crooked politicians doing to make all that, because there's no money those idiots, there's no way those people in Congress and the White House or wherever you stand, there's no way those people are making money being politicians. So I tried to figure out what they were doing, and I realized, like David said earlier, Nancy Pelosi's husband is a big time property guy. So you're looking at all these people going, well, they figured something else out on how to milk the system that they're designing. So that's why we decided on real estate. And then we just kind of I happened into Lifestyles. A professor of mine from A&M told me about it. They said, hey, if you want an education, this is kind of the most cost-effective way to get that education without really, doing anything. You can do it online and all this other stuff. So I signed up pretty much immediately just to have access to the vendors, and then kind of got hooked once I started meeting people and actually diving into the education. My intention was not to be a member like this and doing presentations and everything else. I kind of wanted to milk it for the vendors and all that and walk away, and just kind of got sucked in.
Well, you got sucked in because you found out there's so much more to it. It's not just a vendor program. Yeah. Absolutely. And you had said one thing there about you needed to take a risk, or you were willing to take a risk that your dad didn't before. But what do you feel about that risk now that you've done it? Do you really feel that this is any riskier than spending 35 years of your life working, savings, only to have the stock market crash when you're ready to retire and you got nothing left?
No, that's exactly right. I tell people all the time, and when we talk about we've got a house that's paid off now, and we're in the process of remodeling our own house and everything else so we can get money out of it to reinvest. And he said, well, that's just risky. That's just risky. That's just risky. And I said, no, what's risky is that a house that we own, we have insurance, we have taxes, we have electric, we have gas, we have all these bills that we have to pay. I said, so it doesn't matter that we own the house. That's completely irrelevant because it costs us money to live in this house. So if we take the money from our house and we invest it and we get even half the returns that we're getting on the properties that we've got now, we'd have an extra $800 a month on top of the mortgage, taxes, insurance, electric, everything. So
Yeah.
it's more risky not to do it than it is to have everything paid off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you are one, you guys and Katie have different models. Now, Katie was wanting to, start a family soon and get that passive income so that she can stay home with the kids. So she was really focusing on cash flow, and she hit it out of the park with the 645, even better than what Dave says to mention. Now, you guys had a little bit different of a strategy, because I remember you and Very Pregnant Amy came into my office, one of the first people that I had mentored when I came on board in 2017 as a mentor. And you guys were looking, because you are a young couple, just expecting your first child, you were looking for equity capture so that you could keep moving on up that ladder to your end goal of multifamily. So you have cast your net wide and gone wherever the numbers make sense. So Dave, if you can show us that next slide, I want Jonathan to share some of how he actually acquired this property in Schertz, Texas. And I've never heard of it. I had to Google it and figure out where it was, and I found out it's a long way from Dallas.
Yeah, so we're on the email list for all three regions. I think all the regions except the ones out of state. So we're in all the regions here, and so our other houses are all kind of in the Houston area, because that's where the money. I don't care where the house is, because I'm not going down there to fix a clogged pot. Like it doesn't matter to me. So if all I got to do is use my cell phone and make a phone call, that's fine. The other thing that's a little bit different about me, since I am in sales, I talk to everybody. So I met all the neighbors when we buy these houses and everything else. So I've had neighbors call me in the middle of the night saying like, hey, I think I saw a flashlight back there, call the cops. And like, I've had neighbors do work for me at houses while, doing landscaping stuff. I make friends with everybody kind of in the area. So they all know like, hey, if you have a problem with my tenant, call me, let me talk to them. So I make friends with all those people, kind of make it easier on them. So the house in Schertz, Amy and I were down in New Braunfels. Our goddaughter was being baptized that weekend, and it just so happens they live in New Braunfels. Schertz, that house is like 25 minutes away from their house. And I got an email in the Saturday or Sunday morning or something, and I was sitting on the couch, and normally I'm not checking my phone, but I just happened to pick it up and saw it, responded, was number one on the list. One of my best friends was number two on the list. He found that out later because he called me that day and was all upset because somebody else got the house that he wanted. And I'm like, well, you can take solace, it was me. So from the time that he sent that email out to the time that we signed paperwork was less than an hour. So I got the email. I called him. I said, is it really what you're saying it is? And he said, yeah, it's really what I'm saying it is, but we got to move quick because I don't want this going on the market and everything else. So I hopped in the car, drove down, walked it for maybe 10 minutes. And if you remodel enough houses, like you know real quick what to look for. And I've been remodeling houses my whole life, so it was a really easy decision. So we signed paperwork immediately.
Good. And let's take a look at what you did with this one. Again, I want to point out your before and after is all based on your comparables that you were trying to get that ultimate value from.
Yeah, so this house is much less on the cash flow, but it's even the ARV that they have that you'll see in a minute, it's undervalued. And it's going to be worth a lot more in the 2.5 years when we sell it. But this house, it was an elderly lady that had passed away, and like everything that you see in there was left. So when we bought this house, it was all the dirty carpets everywhere in the bathrooms, around the toilets. And then, just a ridiculous amount of furniture and clothes and family memory and all that kind of stuff was just left in the house, but her family needed to move it quickly. And so the nice thing is I GC'd it myself, actually, just because I left my job and I had about a 3-week break before I started a new job, and it wasn't a big rehab. So I actually GC'd it out myself and dealt directly with, the flooring people, the painters, all that kind of stuff. I hook up appliances just because I enjoy that kind of stuff, and it was fun for me. But in that 3 weeks, I made way more money doing that than I ever would have made working my regular job. And we'll get the numbers in a minute, but vinyl plank flooring throughout, awesome jobs from all the vendors, all stainless steel appliances, new toilets, new fixtures. I had a plumber come in and hook everything up just because I was getting too lazy to do it. So yeah, it worked out well.
Now we've got your numbers up here on the screen, and I wanted to just mention, like Katie, you went in very conservatively. You always run your numbers at the conservative, and if you get icing on the cake and they come out a little bit higher, that's just a surprise, and that's wonderful. So there's lots of wiggle room in there, but you were anticipating your ARV to be, what was it, 225, and it actually came in at 250?
Yeah, something like it might have even been lower, 220, 225, right around there. Okay. And the initial rehab estimate that was sent out was 15, and we could have done it for 15, but my brother-in-law's parents live like 5 minutes away. It's on like General Row. It's where all the kind of upper end military people go to retire. So I knew the area was kind of primo. So I wanted everything to kind of be top notch in it. Which we did. So that's why I decided to push the rehab up, and it obviously paid off with the RV.
Okay, so I see you got it at a very good discounted price. They were a distressed seller, obviously needed to sell quickly and at a discount. Couldn't afford to fix it up themselves. So you had a $90,000 spread there. Then you put in closing costs and rehab and such. Once we take that off too, so you and Amy were going for that equity capture, which you did. So if you can output $23,000 and actually make unrealized capital gains of $60,000, you can see there where we're in the 200 plus, almost to 300%.
That's 60,000 is not going to be 60,000. I'm really confident that when we go to sell this thing, it'll sell for over 300 when we go to sell it. Years. So
that's again, that's going to be the appreciation, but that's just icing on the cake. We don't go into the deal for appreciation because that's speculation, but it happens all the time. So that's great. David, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, you're perfectly fine. But Jonathan, I just don't know if you know this or not. When you make a 200% return plus, you know the technical term for that?
Pee your pants exciting, Dave.
There we go. You're pretty smart for an ag. I just want to say that.
Well, and I'll tell you that 260, it must be the salesman. I mean, 260%, it is always one of those things you step back after the fact and you go, all right, how could I have made it 300?
Of course.
How could I have made that?
Jonathan, prior to Lifestyles, when you were doing the stock market stuff, that's the word for it, stuff, did you make these type of returns? I just want to know, compared to what you were doing before.
All the time. Every day. No, I mean, it's just like anything else when you're young and, you put money in there and that's what everybody tells you to do, and you don't think about it, you don't really look at it, you don't really care. And then after we did our very first house, which I guess it's all kind of on the next slide, but after the first house, Amy and I looked at each other and we went, what in the heck are we doing tossing this amount of money into the stock market every month when we could do this instead? And so we stopped our 401k contributions because we just looked at it and said, you have to be an idiot to sit there and go, I'm going to keep tossing money into this, then maybe I'll be able to access in 35 years, and maybe it'll be more, and maybe, or I could have thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars extra every year with several houses. So
yeah, it's very addicting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you took control. You're in control now, is the thing. You're not just hoping that it works out.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Next slide, because they've actually got a portfolio going on now. So they've had, I think you had 4, but you've sold off 1. But this is your portfolio right now, and you can see right here that they are very, very much focused on the equity capture. And that's what I always tell people, go for your goal. We all want some of both. We're going to get equity because we're buying at a discount, and we're going to get cash flow because we're purchasing it right. And that's the name of the game, must cash flow. But they've got that goal, and they've got their eyes set on putting more into multifamily. And so they wanted a lot of equity capture. So tell us about the 3 years that you've been able to make these totals.
Yeah, so the first one, Juniper Grove, was something, I mean, it was our craziest deal, but I put a lot more effort into that one. I was new, it was the first house. I went down to Houston like 7 times, checking up all along the way, did a bunch of stuff myself. And when we presented on that, David just harassed me the entire time about T-Rex arms and, you need to, you need to knock it off and all that. And so we did. And the more you do, the more you realize the less you have to do. And yeah, it might cut into a little bit here, but we're obviously not that upset about it. I'd rather spend time with my kids and my wife than I would hooking up ceiling fans. So Juniper Grove, we had something crazy like a 48% cash on cash return. Like we've already made our initial investment back on that house, and we're selling it to the tenants in the spring, which is something David will go over. So that'll maximize our equity on that one. Seahorse was the opposite of Juniper Grove. I didn't lift a tool. I never touched anything.
That was the right one.
And it worked out. It was a little bit more out of pocket. I think that was like 23 or 25 or something out of pocket. Obviously still making really good returns. And then Smokey Creek, I think we're making a little bit more than 280 on that one.
So Jonathan, just for the folks listening, did you make over 100% return 3 times in a row?
I made over 250% return 3 times in a row.
Okay, you're just showing off.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that was all. That's what we were after. I mean, from the beginning is if we made $100 a month, so be it. We wanted the we wanted the equity because that's going to get us to passive quicker. That's going to get us to the 29 unit that you bought faster. We can 1031 exchange these things out into an IRO that we never thought possible we'd be able to do. I'm 33. I never thought I'd be looking at buying an apartment by ourselves next year, and that's kind of what we're looking at. So all in all, I think we're about $50,000 for these 3 properties, and we make over 15 a year on them, and then the equity.
So you have 50 grand and you're making 15 grand, which is about 30% return. That even I can figure out the math. But 50 grand also turned 180 grand.
Right.
Pretty good.
Yeah, for a young couple, 3 years time, and they didn't put their life on hold for this. You had the first baby right after you joined, and you've added another one, right?
Yeah.
So there's no excuses. That's what I like about both of these couples, is that there's no excuses. I've heard people say, once the kids get out of school, once this happens, once that happens, I want to buy my own primary first. I want to have family first. Do it all because you're using a team to do it for you.
Right. I think it's important to have kind of a buddy. I mean, the mentors are great, but the other members are incredible as well. And so the buddy that I mentioned earlier that was second in line for this house, him and I talk on a regular basis to keep each other motivated of, hey, what have you done lately? We want to be in our 40s taking trips together. So like, it doesn't do me any good to be retired at 41, which I know Lori's going to say like, it's going to be before that, but my goal,
yeah, it's going to be before that.
And I tell my buddy all the time, I'm like, man, it doesn't do me any good to be retired at 41 if I have nobody to play with. Like when the kids go to school and I want to go shoot all day, like who am I going to go with? So I need you to hurry up and get on it. And so we talk all the time, keep each other motivated and on track.
All right. So you want to thank these folks here quick?
Yeah, Lori's been great, obviously, just because of her shining personality. Not like dude. Casey was the realtor on this one. Once again, just I bought several from John Johnson in Houston, and I mean, I haven't dealt with a realtor yet that has been, I've been like, oh man, that was a disappointment, or oh, I wish they had done that. I mean, everybody's gone out of the way to walk me through stuff and answer questions. And
these are lifestyles realtors, just so
yeah, I mean, 8 months after the fact, I'll email somebody about a property that we bought and say, hey, I can't find this document. Can you send it to me? I mean, it really is incredible. Katie used Integrity Insurance Lee as well. He's great. Red Door has been great. We're doing another property right now. It's the biggest one we've done. It's a over $500,000 ARV, like $150,000 rehab, which is not in the model. I just want to point that out, but we're going for equity capture, and this has a lot of equity capture. And then, like I said, I GC'd it out myself. So Atlas Floors and T-Rex Painting, where those are the guys that did the big chunks of the rehab.
I just like that you hired a T-Rex company.
Yeah.
I couldn't help it. They're the first people I called.
All right.
So how it's changed things for us, I'd say it's made me in my personal life maybe even more T-Rex than I was before. Because you do look at it and say, man, if I spend $5 on this, that's like $25 in 3 years. 3 years
So
time.
are you wearing the $5 t-shirts like Dave from Walmart? You downsized from Target to Walmart?
My wife will tell you, I have not bought a new shirt. Definitely not since we've been married. I wear shirts with holes in them from 15 years ago, and it drives me nuts.
Holy now.
Yeah, well, that just means that your priorities are in line. Absolutely.
Hopefully they'll change. Your wife will change them for you.
Yeah, believe me, Dave. It's started. And then, yeah, the other thing was we wanted to make sure we had the options to retire when the kids were young. I know both my parents working all the time, and trying to do work and sporting events, and not being able to do certain things that we wanted to do. So I don't want my kids reading about pieces of art in Paris. I want my kids to go and see them. I want my kids to not see pictures of the Grand Canyon. I want my kids to hike the Grand Canyon. So for me, that's what it really came down to. Was I want to make sure that I retire young enough to where I can take my kids out for 2 weeks and go hike the Grand Canyon and camp, and I can take anybody who wants to on an Alaskan fishing trip and all that. So that was the reason behind this, and that's one of the reasons why we kind of said the no excuses. Like, if we don't do it now, every year we wait, we calculated out how much money we're going to lose and how much longer we have to work. And it just doesn't make sense to wait.
Right. Absolutely. So you're going to be going into multifamily, and your goal is to have 4 passive deals by the end of this coming year. So that's phenomenal.
2021. Yeah, and we've got, like I said, 2 of our houses we're selling to the tenants. The third, the one that we're presenting on, that one is rented out to a military couple near San Antonio. And so we already told them, like, they're incredible. So as long as they're stationed there and they don't mind the increased rent, which David will get into, as long as they want to stay there, we'll keep renting it to them. And then as soon as they're done and they get shipped off to their next deployment, that's when we'll sell that one. But the 2 that we've got have a lot of equity, and so we're easily going to be able to take that money and reinvest it.
Good.
Isaac, got some questions for us? Let's take 2 or 3.
Boy, do I. Okay, so just 2 or 3. Awesome.
Yeah,
that I can do. Okay, so we've got, somebody said, did the contractor make all of the reno recommendations, specifically on the front of the house? It's beautiful.
No. In this case, no. Don't let that fool you. That on the other ones that were in that portfolio, the contractor, I let them pretty much do everything. This one, I did it simply because I wasn't working, and I really enjoy the work. So I made all decisions, but I followed the Lifestyles model. It's vinyl plank flooring, it's stainless, it's granite, because obviously it's in a higher end area. So, and we're actually continuing the neighbor there is a landscaper, so we're actually letting him increase the value even more, put in flower beds, remove palms, tree,
Nice.
So,
And just so folks know that are listening, Jonathan listened to the model up till the time he didn't. So when he GCs something on his own, that's not what I teach. I teach you every time you lift up a hammer, you lose money, value your time. It's the most expensive thing. He had a unique situation. He's off for 3 weeks and he got bored. Okay, so he had to do something. Otherwise, he was driving his wife nuts. But normally we don't do our own things. I teach you just write a check and have the contractors do all the work, just so everybody understands that.
and also, you know, if we had hired a GC to do it, it probably would have cost maybe an extra $2,000. I mean, because like I said, I didn't really do any of the work. I just GC'd it out. I mean, I did minimal. I
Okay.
power washed some stuff. I think I hooked up some ceiling fans, some light fixtures, some things like that. But
So you could have spent an extra $5,000 and made a 240% return instead of a 260%.
right. But I mean, the thing is, my job is pretty brutal, and you work on stuff and it can be years and years and years before you see the return on that. And so
And here you saw it in a day. Okay.
for me, it's a vacation to do that. I enjoy mowing the yard because I look at it when I'm done and it's done. So like David said, this is not what you have to do. This was a desire that I wanted to do because I really enjoy looking at something when it's done and saying, I did that and I did it right.
I fully understand that, Jonathan. I enjoy watching my son mow my yard too.
One of these days I'll learn all the way.
That's okay.
All right. So actually, I've got a quiz for David and Lori. One of the members who's watching right now put a question in that said, "Another successful Aggie!" Exclamation point! Exclamation point! Who is that? Any guesses?
Is he a petroleum engineer?
There it is. That Lori got it. Lori got it.
He always says he's my happiest member.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so for John, actually on screen, we had somebody ask, what contractors did you use in Houston, and did you have to get permits for all of the work that was done?
Depends on what work is done. So that's the short answer is there are certain things that you can do that don't require, like you don't need to pull a permit to put new granite in. If you get a new roof, a lot of times they will have to pull a permit. But on the house that I GC'd, I didn't do anything that required a permit. You don't have to get a permit for flooring or granite or a toilet, or new fixtures. You don't have to get a permit for any of that stuff. The nice thing is with the other houses, I used All-Star for one. I've used a handful just because I'm kind of trying all the lifestyles vendors out to see who my long-term team is going to be. But for those, I didn't have to worry about any of that stuff because I let the GC take care of it all. I just said, hey, here's the list. Okay, here's what I want changed. Okay, let's agree on the price. And that was the end of it. So I didn't have to worry about that because that's on the general contractor to do.
One more.
Jonathan, I don't want to take up too much time because I know we don't have much time, but I just want to say also, hopefully you have made comments on the vendor website because that's the best way to give back is to do that so that people can go to the vendor website and look at the member comments and help to pick their team that way.
And folks, some of the questions, if we don't have time to answer them right now, just so you know, after we have all the presenters get through their presentations, me and Isaac will stay on as long as it takes tonight, depending on Isaac. We'll answer any questions afterwards.
Got a strict bedtime.
Because right now we have only so much. I just got to make sure I get all the presenters in. Well,
Okay, then last one?
Yep, there we go.
Last one, okay. So a couple people were wondering, your closing costs were really low. What happened there?
So I don't. If they're talking about this house, it was, first of all, I used the lifestyles vendors, so it just kind of ended up being whatever it was. The rates were all I was super happy with. So I didn't. When you're in it, you never think they're low because you're looking at it, you don't want to pay anything.
You're like, I'm paying money? What? $10?
The other thing, and this is something David will go into in the seminar, but when you do the hard money loan and you have as much built in to this place as we did, we didn't have to pay any closing costs when we did the refi.
What he meant to say is you actually pay the closing costs but they rolled it into the loan itself, so it was no more money out of pocket.
There you go.
I'll explain that mathematically. He's an Aggie, a little slower, but I will break it down step by step how to do that.
So we actually,
And also-
when we refi, we actually got money back into our pocket.
Yes, you get up to $2,000 back at the second
Right,
closing.
exactly.
But I will teach you all this stuff. I know it sounds like Greek if you're new. It'll be down to simple third grade math that a dumb guy with a high school diploma can do it. You can do it, okay?
But I'm impressed that someone noticed that and thought to ask. That was a great question.
Yeah,
It is
there's some good questions in there. I mean, what he's also kind of showcasing right now is the fact that he's not an expert in all this stuff. It's not like he was like, oh, well, I used this formula to map out all this stuff, and that's what gave him the discounts. He literally just worked with vendors who have been working with our members constantly and know how to set up these products and know how to set up these things to make it as beneficial as possible for our members, because that's what they're there for.
That was an excellent point, Isaac. Good job.
Yeah, and well, I will say the vendors are,
Paying attention too.
the vendor, these guys are incredible. I mean, I never wanted to know about insurance, anything. I don't care. I don't. But these guys on the vendor, I mean, Lee with integrity, he's interested in it. He gets all jacked up about it, and these guys are more than willing to teach you about anything. 212 for the hard money loans, and I've learned more about hard money loans than I ever wanted to know, and that's none. But it's so cool because these guys will spend so much time with you, and they're not even lifestyles employees. They just know the network, and they know we all talk, and they know we're a network, and they take care of our network more than anything I've seen before. So it's pretty awesome.
Awesome. All right.
I'm
Well,
off for
thank
now.
you so much, Jonathan, for giving back. And Lori, I really appreciate you and what you do for all the members. Keep doing what you're doing because you're a hero.